Thank you very much. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. We've heard a lot about how the administration really wants to support rural America, but bottom line, we're not seeing a lot of action so far. We've seen a lot of spending, and Iowans, are feeling as if they've been thrown under the bus and not really seeing the benefit. A lot of the proposals and laws that I hear about when I'm out doing the 99 county tour, when we're doing the farmer roundtables to help support what we're doing in the Farm Bill, I hear a lot about the so-called Inflation Reduction Act and how a lot of how that was written really reads like the Green New Deal. And as we're looking at the Farm Bill, we want to make sure that what we're doing in the Farm Bill is actually working with our farmers, with our ranchers for their benefit, not the folks on the far left on the coasts of the United States. This is about middle America and providing food necessary for the greater population. We know that this administration is focused heavily on green energy, which on its own, that's great, but there is such an ardent push towards electric vehicles that, and you know how I feel about ethanol, that we have this ready-made available resource in the Midwest that's cheaper. It's a cheaper energy solution than some of the proposals, such as the electric vehicles. And we really feel that it deserves full attention. So I know ethanol biodiesel is not, it doesn't fall under the jurisdiction of this particular committee, but it is something that is very beneficial for our farmers. The president has been very insistent on returning to a number of harmful, overreaching regulations. And again, as I'm out across every one of my counties, and you know those counties very well, every one of those counties, when I do a town hall, when I do a farmer roundtable, WOTUS always comes up. And here we are returning to the Obama-era regulations of waters of the U.S. And it doesn't matter what group it is, farmers, small business owners, county secondary roads personnel, they are all just very upset about WOTUS regulations, and they feel they haven't been heard. So folks are struggling, Mr. Secretary. They're struggling in Iowa. They're spending more, they're getting less, and especially in the most rural of our communities. We've got to stop the out-of-control partisan spending. We need less regulations, not more. And so I want to focus on our livestock sector because this is maybe where you can help us out here. So Secretary Vilsack, the livestock producers were hit very hard during the pandemic. I have experienced a lot of hardships through various times and trials during my time here at the Senate, but the pandemic was probably the hardest to sit through Zoom calls and conference calls with our farmers and those that were going out and culling herds and their livestock because of plant closures. During that tough time, a lot of the producers sought to capture a greater share of the retail meat dollar by joining with other producers to build packing plants that they supply and own. And as you know, Iowa is home to Cattlemen's Heritage, which is building a state-of-the-art facility in Council Bluffs, Iowa, down near me, and West Liberty Foods, which is building a new producer-owned turkey processing plant in West Liberty, Iowa. In our neighboring state of Nebraska, there are similarly structured beef processing startups that are producer-supplied and producer-owned. So the USDA created the Meat and Poultry Processing Expansion Program to expand small and regional meat processing to bolster supply chain resiliency. And as you've described, quote, will give farmers and ranchers a fair chance to compete in the marketplace. End quote. So thus far, grants totaling $157 million have been awarded. So that's a good thing. We've got grants going out the door. Three of the largest grants total $69 million, which comprise nearly half of the funds awarded. Now, again, a lot of money's gone out the door. We think that's a good thing, but nearly half of it has only gone to three projects who are privately owned by some of the wealthiest people in the United States. One of the projects in Nebraska is owned by a man on the Forbes billionaires list. Another in Idaho is owned by the wealthiest man in the state of Idaho. And a project in South Carolina is being awarded to a privately held family business with production in 5 states. And hey, I have no objection to families succeeding and owning, a lot of businesses, and I wish them great success. But what I find problematic is that taxpayer dollars are being doled out as free grants to billionaires while applications from farmer-owned startups like Cattlemen's Heritage in southwest Iowa and West Liberty Foods expansion are deemed unworthy through these grants. So, Mr. Secretary, what is the criteria that has been used by USDA to determine who is getting grants, and why are we seeing that billionaires are being awarded those grants over smaller-owned startups?
Well, Senator, first of all, the Iowa project you mentioned is actually on the list that's currently under review. And we're in the process of finishing the environmental review that is required under NEPA before grants can be issued. So just be patient. I think you're going to find that is a project that merits additional investment. That's going to be forthcoming. The level of investment is based on the application that people submitted. Some of these plants are very small. A Charles City plant, for example, very small, needed $8 million, and we provided it. A Cherokee plant needed several $1 million. We provided it. So Iowa's received several grants already, and I anticipate and expect they're going to receive at least one more for sure. And then there's the circumstance of the second round of resources. So the criteria is based on independently owned, that they're not part of the big 4 packing operations. We obviously are investing in farmer-owned cooperatives that are in processing. We are very conscious of where the need is based on the consolidation of livestock operations and livestock that's being raised. And so we're trying to make sure that we are doing a good job of spreading this out in a way that actually meets the market demand and provides these producers more than one market. And so we're excited about this. We think the 31 projects we've funded already are good projects and are going to expand market opportunities, but we have not stopped. But there are going to be more. For sure, there are going to be more, a lot more.
And I appreciate that, and thank you. I think it is important that we have support to some of these smaller, again, farmer-owned, operated facilities. I think the discouraging part is when we do see such incredibly large producers, those that are on the billionaires list, receiving, rather than a loan, they're receiving the free dollars from our taxpayers. But we can certainly talk through that as we look at some of these programs for renewal in the Farm Bill. So thank you, Mr. Secretary.